approach me and make it look nonchalant, and there is no other way he will approach me. He wants to make it look as normal as talking about the weather, or asking the time when he asked for $10, or a ride across town to a non-existent job interview. I go home and measure the room to be sure of the square footage. Then I drive back out to Lowe's Hardware. There he is again, walking along the bypass. There's a red light. As he's legging it across the intersection, a knife clatters onto the pavement. He has to turn around and pick it up. It is a long black dagger, maybe military surplus. I can't believe I do not see where the knife falls from or where he puts it. A woman with white hair stares from the windshield of her golden Lexus in horror at the young man picking up the dagger. Then I am through the intersection.
Sam entered the drugstore at 9 o'clock. The fluorescent lights flickered as he passed by some sunglasses that he wanted. But he marched on by toward the pharmacy, hand on the .38 in his pocket. "Give me all the Vicodin," he snarled, pointing the gun at the Weasley pharmacist. "Make it fast, motherfucker." The pharmacist grabbed a quart-sized plastic bottle from the back shelf and slid it over the counter. The pharmacist thought Stocky Sam resembled a hog, a baseball catcher, grandfather's Black Angus bull. All these images ran through his mind as he trained a new pistol that he had never fired at the future farmer's patch on the back of Sam's jean jacket. Sam slumped to the floor where the herbal medicines gave way to contact lens solutions, still clutching the Vicodin bottle. A fullback tackled from behind, the pharmacist would tell his tennis partner.
I drive out to Ingles for beer and gas and fresh mushrooms for spaghetti. On the way back home, I see him for what is the third and, I hope, last time, walking past a closed furniture factory where Carbon City Road becomes Highway 70. Probably going to ask someone at the KFC or Taco Bell parking lot for $10 or for a ride to a place so he can get them something they want him to have or something he promises to get them. I sit here hoping that he is passing through on his way to another town where his brother really did find work. I hope he is on his way there and that it is far away and that he and his brother stay there. Then I begin to wonder who they will hurt in that place, how long it will take them to get fired or quit or get arrested. I wonder how long it will take them to hurt someone there. Then I start to get paranoid. I begin to worry that it is here, that he wasn't just passing through, that he and his brother are meeting up here, and that when they meet up, he will say to his brother, "I saw him today. I saw him just as he was getting into his car. There were so many people. If I had only come along 15 seconds sooner." And his brother will pull out a dagger like the one his brother dropped in the intersection, and he will stick it into a wall or into a floor or into a table because he always wanted to be as tough as the guys in the movies, and he will say, "No worries, we got all the time in the world." I worry I will look up and see them outside of my window in the middle of the night or standing beside my car when I come out of a bar half lit and alone. I worry that I will turn around and they will be staring me in the face.
The English teacher raised her face to the fluorescent light, her left hand clutched at her heart, the right one bending a book. This was her poetry trance. Gauging their friends' reactions, the class stirred uneasily. Larry stared at her stocking legs, praying quietly for her to sit the desk edge, to ride her skirt up those stunning thighs as she rocked to the rhythm of the village smithy or the stopping by the woods point. He thought of carrying her over his shoulder, one hand on the black panties he had once glimpsed, bare feet beating his belly. This was his poetry trance.
A month goes by, nothing. Then one morning I'm jogging up Union, taking a shortcut to the Greenway. It's barely light. The town is about as quiet as it ever gets. Maybe there's even a little mist still hanging around in the branches of the trees. I'm concentrating on my breathing. In a way, I'm not seeing anything, just what I need to see to keep from getting run over. But I see him. He waves. At first, I think he's waving at me, but it's impossible. He isn't even facing my direction. He is standing in the parking lot of the Exxon and waving to someone on the opposite corner. I look at the spot he's waving at. His brother is there. I almost dart behind a tree in someone's yard. Holy fuck, do they see me? Of course. They're waiting for me. Holy shit, they're pretending that they aren't expecting me, but they are. There's one more cross street between me and the Exxon. I'm going to have to get close, but I feel if I turn back then, they'll see me for certain. Besides, I needed a closer look to be sure. I turn off Union Street, heart pounding hard, afraid to jog home, afraid not to jog home. I went home by curious stretches of road.
They sat in the Baptist church parking lot, making their plan. Sam would grab an armload of records and dash from the curb market, where the aisle opened straight to the door of Larry's waiting Scirocco. Sam flipped through the albums. He wanted all the Kiss and the Skinner, and if he could manage to move them to the P's, he'd grab the Poco that had rows of Cimarron. Outside, Larry was watching for cops, thinking they shouldn't have smoked that last joint at the church, when Sam came hoofing out the door, the bell jangling as he leapt through toward the car, his arms stacked with a whole hack of records. The market clerk in pursuit, his red apron flapping as Larry shoved the car door open and Sam stumbled, fell headfirst into the seat. When Larry popped the clutch, the car door swung wide open, catching the clerk in his knee, his face, his arm. They barked rubber till they left Highland and headed south toward their Hog Hill trailer. Excited, they examined their booty. Some Skinner, the Poco, a band called Steely Dan, one Kiss, and 10 copies of KC and the fucking Sunshine Band.
A week went by, and then I started jogging in a park where lots of people were and at peak times of activity. I was afraid to run alone along the river, or up the mountain, or even around town. Besides losing these freedoms, there were all sorts of tragic shenanigans around the house. Waking up and walking around in the middle of the night, fearfully looking out of each and every window, checking the locks 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 times. I cracked a toe, creeping around the kitchen with a baseball bat in the dark. In the back of my mind, I knew I had really gone mad when I installed motion sensor lights on the north, east, west, and south sides of the house. Had I known that they had actually walked right by my house, or driven by in the middle of the night when I was asleep, or writing, or both, I really would have come unhinged. There was no one to turn to, not my friends and not the police. Neither would have believed me. The police would have asked too many questions. I couldn't tell them what I knew or how I knew it, because I had had the brothers do one too many things for me. One too many.
Larry was never crazy about snakes, but wasn't scared when he saw one hanging in the barn or slinking through the equipment shed. Grandpa said they eat the rats, got their place. Sam would carry one in his pocket to school. He liked the dry, scaly coaling around his forearm, the dead slit eyes, but mostly what he liked was how other people feared them mindlessly. Grasping a snake, he felt a power he had no words for, better than sex, intoxicating as dope, and he knew the devil would tell him what to do if he only waited. Yes, he would.
I bought a treadmill so I wouldn't have to run outside anymore. I would have ordered every meal in, but I began to fear that one of them would show up with a pizza or some Chinese, a robe, a knife, and a naked hatred. I started playing my radio lower so I could listen for menacing sounds, creeping, lurking. I kept my Swiss Army knife in my pocket. I admit I carried a baseball bat from room to room. Wherever I was in the house, there was the ash bat from high school leaning against the wall. I fed my fear. I fueled it with copious amounts of alcohol and painkillers and pot after pot of black coffee. I bought litter boxes and kept the cats inside in spite of the stench. I grew a beard. I wore sunglasses. I got a bigger knife.
They beat him till he wailed the one whole note of ceaseless pain. Then they beat him into silence. There was nothing but the house with its broken windows and its sagging front porch, the leavings of a roof, the punched teeth of old brick walls. He woke on the shit-covered floor, reached in his pocket for the glass pipe, praying he was alone, that they'd had the decency to leave him something. Convinces him to snuff the match that lights a Winston in his bearded face down by the fire pit. A full potato resting on an Anderon, his boot propped on a cement block. As he waits for the neighbor's hound to destroy the silence, he dips a finger, stirring the starlight in his drink.
I quit going to the store at all, and I used drive-thrus for all of my meals. It goes without saying, there was no more swimming in the city's indoor pool, no more photographing wildlife off the beaten path. I stayed in and watched movies on Film Fix. Ronnie Sapp, God bless him, he brought me some pot to cheer me up. I watched 2010, A Space Odyssey for the umpteenth time, and then I did the same with 2001. I contrast and compare the character of Dr. Haywood Floyd in both movies for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. How different he is. I love Kubrick's movie, but I like the Dr. Floyd of 2010 much better than the impersonal bureaucrat he appears to be in 2001. Roy Scheider does a great job in the role of Haywood Floyd. He did a good job being the sheriff of that town and all. Hey, what town expects their sheriff to have to fight a great white shark? I mean, the guy's marriage was breaking up, and I'm sure he had plenty of paperwork piling up on his desk. And he's like, okay, I gotta go out on a little boat and kill a giant shark.
When Larry looked through the screen, he knew it was them, scrawny, prematurely stooped, grinning like possums, balding, standing on apple boxes before the young hipster audience, sprawled out like attitudes on their chairs and sofas. Pope and Peeler, reading their Charlie Brown poems. Pope, all artistic pauses, Peeler, spastic and cross-eyed. Larry almost felt sorry for them, almost resheathed the black dagger, almost stepped back out of the porch light into the anonymous darkness, almost waved Sam back behind the naked pin oaks. But he knew it was the only way. So as Pope read about the crucified cat, Sam swung the gleaming barrel of the 12-gauge into Shaw Gray's West Asheville living room.
The poetry reading is survived by the poet, the poet's family, the poet's friends, many of whom are also poets. Poets who aren't friends of the poets, but who go to poetry readings with the unspoken expectation that the favor be returned. Young poets who pretend, even to themselves, that they saw something inspiring so they won't have to face what a waste the evening was. One of the poets in attendance claimed that the poetry reading could have been saved if they had moved at full speed ahead to the lobby of a tire store. The poet took a seashell from inside of his coat pocket and he placed it next to his ear. He spread his fingers and stuck his thumb to the side of his head as though there were antlers or antennae. He stood like that for a moment. He took his hand down, put the shell away, and continued. People are tired of having their poetry interrupted by cappuccino machines. People want poetry that's interrupted by pneumatic drills. They want compression and rattling of chains. People waiting in the lobbies of tire stores want poetry, even if it just allows them the chance to tell people how much they hated it. Even if they act embarrassed for the poet, or become angry and walk out or throw you out, but they want it. If we had only taken the poetry reading immediately to a tire store, the people in the lobby would have saved it. We wanted to save the poetry reading ourselves, but we were just a bunch of poets. And the best we could do was sit with it, hold its hand, and watch it breathe its last.